Everybody, this is David coming to you today from the Yakima Ferry connecting Anacortes, Washington and the San Juan Islands here in Washington State. Ferry travel is necessary here in the state of Washington because of so many islands and so many different places to go. And so this is one of the most popular routes from the northwest Puget Sound, north of Seattle, about an hour and a half north of Seattle, out to the San Juan Islands, which are islands between here and Canada. We'll be out here for about 10 days, and so I thought I would do this video for MSOM 601 from the ferry going out. Sorry for the sound, the vibrations, but I'm on a ferry, okay? So thought I would review Lesson 2 and then preview Lesson 3 coming up. Lesson 2 really continues the foundation setting for this course. And so one of the questions asked you about the difference between strategic and critical thinking. I want to encourage you to take a look at my comments that I made on the discussion post in the grade book. And so as I grade this week, I put some general comments in there, and I have some sources that I use directly from a blog. Now, again, it's not peer-reviewed, but I think it hits the message that I want to contribute and the difference between strategic and critical thinking. Also this week, in the announcements, I posted a strategic thinking pyramid from the Think Watson site. I would encourage you to bookmark the Think Watson site. That is a good site to provide you some good white papers, also some other pieces of information that will be very, very helpful for you in going forward in the class. Had some really good comments this week on the Marcus Buckingham video. I posted a couple of extra videos in there. That is one that I used to use quite a bit called Trombone Player Wanted. If you haven't had a chance to watch that one, it's really in two parts, and I had to get it directly off of YouTube. The first video is fine. The second one's a little grainy. But take a look at that. As I mentioned, I'm a big Marcus Buckingham fan. And when you start thinking about strength-based thinking or strength-based assessments, I also look at those from a biblical perspective. I mean, you go to church and you take a spiritual gifts inventory. I mean, so this whole thing based on strengths is actually biblical, if you want to draw that connection. So take a look at that, and if you want any additional comments or any other resources from Buckingham, he's got some great stuff, and I have some good recommendations if you just want to bounce me an email separately. And then the final thing in Lesson 2 this week gave you an opportunity to look at the key players inside of Amina's story and apply the 7 different thinking styles to them. Now, this is a really good application, I think, because what it does is it demonstrates that in a problem-solving exercise and a critical thinking exercise, it takes multiple different thinking styles. So Dr. Naidu and Kevin Gerard and Aunt Janet and Deanna Dolan, Colonel Bellin, all these people had different thinking styles that, again, I say that if they didn't invoke those different thinking styles on those people going forward, perhaps the result of Amina's story may have been different. And so think about that and use that as you begin to work with people, personally, professionally, and so on. I think it's a great application in that story, and that's the reason that I put that in there. Lesson 3 begins to talk about problems. It's really all about problems. And so in the first discussion board question this week, you're going to talk about the importance and the difficulty sometimes in identifying the problem. Too often, if you go into a particular exercise and you don't correctly identify the problem, then you're solving to something that's not an issue. And so you waste a lot of time, energy, and effort solving something that's not really the problem. And so taking the time to identify the problem is very important. And in today's society, where we really want to get to the solutions, we'll spend 5 minutes talking about the problem and the rest of the time drawing up the solution, when in fact it should be flip-flopped. And I've got a Einstein quote I'll share with you at the end of this particular lesson on that one that I think makes a lot of sense. The second thing that you'll see is a video on a technique called the is not technique. And for those of you who might have a Six Sigma background, you may have seen this before. I don't like to present a lot of new options for problem solving, as I mentioned last week. I like to keep them relatively narrow. But this is not technique is really a good one because it can help you narrow down some of the things that may be symptoms to get to the heart of the problem. I used to use this quite a bit in sales issues when we would be talking about a customer and why a customer result wasn't what we had anticipated. We would go back through it and use the is not technique to narrow it down to those things that are critical importance. The video this week, again, is a little bit grainy. I would encourage you to open it up into big screen as you're watching it, but really get the message of what that is all about. And then finally, the application this week gives you a chance to talk about the RED model. The RED model is near and dear to my heart. It stands for recognize assumptions, evaluate arguments, and draw conclusions. All of us, as we begin to approach problems, have some assumptions that we're bringing in to a particular problem-solving exercise, whether we think we do or not. And so some of those assumptions that we bring in may be about the people who are on the team solving it with us. We may be bringing in baggage from the last time we worked with them. We may be looking at other types of things and other assumptions that we bring into the mix. Doesn't make those assumptions right or wrong, but I think one of the key things that you'll see in this problem-solving process is to make sure that you recognize those and know about them. So your assumptions, other people's assumptions that you're bringing in, because if you don't do that, then you're going to miss some opportunities. And then everyone's going to have certain things that they think are the best way to solve it. I mean, so you need to be able to evaluate those. And then the drawing conclusions piece is not just a hands-up vote, but it's really focusing on the things that correctly get to the problem as you do those. And then the application this week is looking at 5 different, I'm asking you to pick 5 additional problems that you saw in Amina's story that needed solutions. And so one of the key things and key takeaways here is that there was one big problem, and that was this girl was going to die unless she received heart surgery. But there were a lot of other problems that came up as they were trying to solve that one big problem. So I want you to identify those this week and then spend some time on application saying, why is it important to understand that big problems normally have a bunch of little problems that can be associated with them as you go forward. All right? I'm going to be out here in the San Juans for about 10 days or so. I will have limited phone service, but I will have easy access to internet. So if you need me, make sure you contact me. And in the meantime, study hard, and I will chat with you soon. Take care.